tokens and how to validate the JWT token based on our requirement point of view are in general, how to create the tokens, how to validate the token with respect to user ID and timestamp. We are trying to understand. So as part of that, we written the logic, but we are trying to, while we are executing, we got an exception and after that we lost power for online people also, offline also. So anyway, I will continue from there only. We will revisit the code one more time, what we implemented, and we will try to test it then. Okay. So this is all about creating the token. This is what we completed on the Saturday class and we discussed yesterday also. So when you want to create, you just need to use the JWTs class from the JWT framework. From that, you're using the builder and you're passing the details. Your user ID, at what time you are creating, and duration of the token life, and okay, what is the secret key you're applying to generate the token. You're just making a create token. Here it is. So here the most important point here it is, the thing what will change every time is user ID. User ID will change for every time. That means for every new user login, for every client connection, or for every incoming client. Okay, for the client user ID, this value will change, right? So here Dilip will come, Naresh will come, Suresh will come, so and so, XYZ ABC will come always. So this value will change always. That's why you taken as a method argument, so that we can call this method by passing the user ID. Okay, like that. So second thing is, okay, now it's all about validating the token details. How we are validating the token details. Yesterday we taken the analysis part and we implemented a small design also, what we have to write the code point of view. So whenever there is no token, are you going for the validation? First of all, token itself not there. The guy is not sending token as part of the client is not sending token as part of the header. So then we are not going to do any evaluation and we will say simply like you are unauthorized person. So that means security is failed. Now in case the token is available, okay, the request coming from the Dilip 123. Now this is the token we received. Then what you are doing, first step, we are receiving or we are reading user ID from this token. So to get the user ID from the existing JWT token, what we have to do? We have to write down a logic by using parser method, right? By using parser method. Yeah, here also, yeah. Anyway, this is all getting the user ID. So here we are using parser method. We are applying the signing key. Whatever we used for the creation purpose, same key you have to use. Okay, if you are creating token with one key and you are trying to extract the details or decrypting the token with another key, okay, the extraction will fail, the decryption will fail. So that's why you have to use the same secret key. Hope this will be always mostly permanent value only. Okay, parse clients JWS. So here you are saying like yesterday we used something like JWTs method. Okay, you can use this method parse clients JWS and then token. The token what you received from the client or front end. Okay, so the token we are going to pass and we are passing the login user ID also. So then what is the meaning of this method? We are simply verifying, first of all, user ID point of view matching or not. The incoming, the requested user ID is matching with the user ID of from the token, whatever we received, the token ID, both are matching or not. If both are matching, then we are going for the next step called as which one? Timestamp evaluation. For example, both are mismatching. Then is it, would we need to go for the timestamp evaluation? No, username itself matching. Then what I will do with, even though the time is, it is having, okay, lifetime time. I mean, the token is not expired, but user IDs are mismatching. Then are we going to allow, are we going to say like security is passed? No, right? User IDs has to be matched. Okay, so that's why we written this logic, only user ID point of view. Now after that, token time validation point of view, we written one more method. So as part of this again, we got the token expiry time, at what time it is going to be expired. So I just added sysouts, token expiry time, okay, token current time, system current time, I can add like this, or request received time, whatever it is. I can add meaningful like this, request, you just okay, so you don't write down sysouts. What you have to write? Loggers. Don't do sysouts going further in your Spring Boot applications. Make sure a good habits when you are practicing that will help you automatically in real-time projects without practicing one more time when you join into the projects. When you know the things, apply the things. Okay, don't be lazy. Okay, who will add the logger? Who will create the logger object? Why I have to add? Let me continue with this sysout. Okay, so don't do that. It's when you know the things, apply the things, even though it is taking time. Okay, so sysout I return token expiry time what you received here. I request received time. So I return. Okay, so I just corrected yesterday. We written before, right? So I used one more method called as after also. Expiry time after current time. So that means what is the point here? It is 8:45 after 8:40. The statement is true or false? The statement is true or false? Yes, 8:45 after 8:40, right? 8:45 is after 8:40 only, right? So that's why true. So that is how you can use the after method. If you are using the before method, you have to use again negate symbol. So that's why we can use after method also. Simple, very simple. It's all about after method is from the which class? After method from which class? Yes, date class. This is date object, right? Expiry time dot. This is belongs to which class? Date class. Date object. After, before, all there are a lot of. So please practice one or two examples with respect to date and time API in core Java. Nowadays, I mean, in couple of interview questions, they will ask you. So how to get the current time, how to validate. So something like that. At least one or two examples, not that much. Okay, heavily you have to practice. Just at least one or two examples practice with respect to date and time. And nowadays, there is one more important class called as we are using in my project almost everywhere. Local date and time. Have you ever seen this class? Local. So local date. Okay, this one is one class. It will give only date. This will give time also. Local date time. So these are all classes are more popular nowadays. Okay, so java.time package. This is introduced again as part of which version? 1.8. Yes, Java 8 only. Okay, there is a new enhancement happened with respect to date and time APIs. So they released as java.time and this local date time, these are all being used in my projects. Okay, wherever we are having a date and time requirements, mostly we are using these classes. Nowadays, I mean, most of the projects are going with the Java 8 date and time API. So just practice one or two examples at least. Okay, fine. So this is what we return. It's a very simple. Getting the expiry time, checking with current time. Whenever you receive the request time, so with that you are just checking as it is. Okay, whether if it is after, then true. That means still it is having validity like that. And we combined both operations here. So with respect to user ID, is it good or not? With respect to, okay, once user ID point of view good, then you are moving to the time validity. So even time validity is also good. Then true and true, you are going to get true operation. So true result, right? And operator, logical and. Okay, so this is how we are going to validate the token. Let me start my application. So whenever you are, I told you already yesterday also, whenever you are writing the logics, don't write only logic. As a practice point of view, write these kind of steps. It will improve your analysis. It will improve your thought process. Okay. So do like this only. In the Eclipse only, try to write down your own comments. Write your own language. No problem. Okay. So it will improve your thought process. So write like this. No problem. Use case 1, use case 2. First do the analysis. Write down the use cases. Then start the programming. At the end, programming should be started. Before that, you have to finalize with the solution. That is what the reality, that is how we have to practice any programming concept. Otherwise, it's very difficult. When you are generally what people will do, when you got a problem, we will start first 1-2 lines of the coding, public class, class name, public static void main, integer A, integer B. Then we will start thinking about the actual logic. No, it's not the good process. First, once you receive the problem, identify the analysis. I mean, first analyze the problem. What is the problem? What is the solution you have, what they are expecting? Try to make a small analysis. Implement a design in your mind. Okay, if I take in 2 variables, okay, if I defined it as an integer, if I take in so and so, I mean, out of 2 numbers, if you want to find out a prime number, something like that. Okay, then what is the formula for prime number? So like that, you just make an analysis and write 1 or 2 sentences in theory format. What you are trying to do like this. Okay, user ID, I will get this one, but this is requested user ID. Not matching, two use cases. If it is matching, then go for the time validity. If it is not matching, then don't go for the, even if you are explaining in such a way in interviews also, definitely panel will impress with your way of explanation. Okay, it's not like directly you are writing the code and you are saying like, okay, so that's why in most of the interviews they will ask you. Once they are asking the interview questions, they will not, when you are trying to write down the logic, most of the panels will ask you like, don't write, I mean, they will ask you before writing the logic, can you tell me what is your thought process? Can you tell me what is your solution? Can you explain me? They are asking like that or not? So most of the panels will ask like that. So their intention here it is, they are not bothering about the way how you are writing the logic syntaxes, semicolons, colons. Their intention here it is, how you are thinking about a problem. Okay, the solution, how you are making the solution out of the problem. The thought process. So how you are making the solution from the problem, how you are thinking, how you are making the analysis, and from that analysis, how you are designing the solution. That is what they are expecting in most of the interviews. Okay, so they will not expect always a program directly. They first you have to try to explain them what is your analysis for that problem, what is your design, and then start writing the code. Then it will give a good impression. Okay, so fine. So write down these kind of things. It's a good thing for you only. Okay, see now we written yesterday one more REST service for user taking the user ID and getting token from the header. Okay, so let me create the token for Dilip123. Okay, so this is the token we got now. I will do one thing. Okay, so now I will create one more token for ABC XYZ. Okay, fine. So these are all created at 7:53. Okay, so let me do one thing. I'm sending, okay, token validation for the Dilip123. So I'm sending token also, Dilip old token. So I'm taking Dilip token only. Okay, I'm sending here. And what is the validity we given? 5 minutes. We given 5 minutes in the configuration. Okay, so now you got true. True means is it a valid token? So in what way it is a valid token? So if you return the loggers or sysouts, it will help you like this. What is the token you received? Okay, login user ID is Dilip123. Token expiry time is 7:58. But request received at 7:54. So is it a good or not? So it is having validity up to 7:58. That's why final result is true. Even if you want, you can write down one more statement. User ID got from the token like that, one more sysout or logger. Here, then it will give you here also token user ID, sysout dot token user ID like that. If you want, you can write down one more line. Okay. So, for example, now what I will do, I'm sending request one more time. So you are going to get true or false. Our system restarted. We are restarted our Spring Boot application. Right? I made a change and I restarted my application. So that means token is having up to 7:58, but my application is restarted. Now tell me token is going to be something like broken or expired, or is it going to work? We restarted our application. That is what the problem here it is. So maybe any runtime level it is maintaining or something like that. Okay, so it will work. So that means once a token is generated, even if you take and see here, I will do one thing. So this token, if you have, right? So token, once it is created by the JWT framework, the token you can use in another programs also. That's why it has to be very secure. Okay, if you see here, JWT IO. So from here, I deleted this token. I entered my token. So what you are seeing, ABC XYZ issue date, expiry time, and everything, right? So like that, people, you can see, you can decrypt the details once you got the token also, irrespective of time memory. Okay, now at 758 it will expire. Okay, instead of that, what I'm trying to do here, it is now in the delete token place, user ID is delete. Okay, but I'm sending actual token belongs to ABC XYZ. Okay, so delete is fine, but token belongs to ABC XYZ. Okay, send it. Now you got false. The reason is that is what expected behavior, right? So if you see here, okay, let me clear the console. I will send request one more time. Send it. Okay, now see here. Token you got. Okay, you printed. I printed one more time also. Login user ID is delete 123, but user ID from the token is XYZ. So that's why we made token is a invalid token. So that means false, invalid token. So that means security success or fail. I mean security check fail because token is not a valid token. So like that, you are going to deal with the token creation and token validation. Okay. So is that clear? Okay. Now even at 759, if I am sending a request with this token, is it going to work? Or even delete only, but token is all about expiry token. So at 759 it will expire, right? So now if I'm sending this token, we are going to get some exception. What is that exception is token is expired. I am unable to extract the details like that. But if you are handling that exception with try catch block, and in the catch block, if you return any return statements or if you return any message, you can return, I mean, based on that, or return false. In the catch block, you can return it as a, you know how to do the exception handling in Java, right? So right where, okay, right, what you have to do is, I will not taking that, you just do that. So generally where you will get the exception, here you will get the exception because it's a expiry token. From the expiry token, JWT framework will also unable to read the details. Okay, that's why it will throw an exception. Then what you have to do? Write this logic inside the try. Okay, write one more catch block inside that. Take a boolean value return false. False means simply it is a expiry token. That's all. Okay, like that, you just handle that exception by using your core Java skills. Okay, let me send the request now. See, it's a simple exception, runtime exception. They are throwing the runtime exception. JWT expired at 758, but your send request at 759. So that's why you got an exception, runtime exception you got. So to handle the exceptions, what is the concepts we know? Exception handling. So you can inside the catch block, once you receive this define catch block of what is the exception you can take? Expired JWT token. Write that logic in the try. In the catch block level, define this exception. Then it will reach us to the catch block once this exception is throwing. Then print a logger message and return false. That's all. Then you will not see this all entire stack trace here. Finally, you will get what? False here. Right? So like that, you can handle the runtime exception. Is it clear? Okay. So just handle the runtime exception with this type by using your core Java skills. Okay. So it's a very important exception handling is also in most of the projects, in every project, not most of the projects. Okay. So this is all about the token creation and validation with respect to. So if you are writing the try catch block, then even the token is expired, then what is the result you are going to get? Instead of exception, you will get always as a false. Okay, fine. So this is all about the JWT token creation and validation, guys. This is how we are going to create the tokens in most of the applications. 99% is almost same. Even when it comes to OAuth 2 also. Okay, so I will just show you how OAuth 2 keys are going to be generated. See, OAuth 2 is being used in so many programming languages. These are all third-party components, security frameworks like JWT, OAuth 2, something else. So these are all not at all related to only one programming language like Spring or Spring Boot. So no, these are all common security frameworks, common techniques across all the programming languages. So that's why when you are seeing like OAuth 2 example, Python, Golang, everything you are getting. See here, they are using OAuth 2, JWT and all. So, but I will just show you. Okay, if you see here, generally in WAF 2 level, sorry, what will happen here it is, for WAF 2 point of view generally, okay, let me just, I'll give you a high level. Okay, if it is WAF 2, for example, if it is JWT, the token creation, where it is happening guys? Backend application, right? As part of our Spring Boot application, assume it's a Spring Boot, backend is a Spring Boot. So the token creation and validation, token creation and validation, both are happening at what place? In our Spring Boot application or not? The logic where we are writing, creating the token, validating the token inside our application only. But what 2 is going to do, okay, it is improving little bit complexity. So what 2 is saying, this token creation validation is not going to be part of our Spring Boot application. For this, we are going to maintain one more server. Only for the token creations, validations, all this point of view, we will maintain one more external server. Okay, so what 2 resource server point of view. Now, whenever, okay, client would like to send a request, log in, internally, our backend application will connect it to the WAF2 server. Now, WAF2 server will create a token and give it to back and client. Now, whenever client sending a request, now again, server will give a REST call to the WAF2 server. Okay, now WAF2 server, by taking the token, it will validate all the details. And it will say like, yes, it is a good token, proceed with the request execution. Then it will execute the request and it will send the response. So here, what is the main difference you observe with respect to JWT versus WAF2? WAF2 we are maintaining as a one more server. That WAF2 is maintaining the entire client secrets, all these functionality, token validity, token generations, all these things as a separate application point of view, separate server point of view. There we are not integrating as part of actual business logic application. We are not integrating the entire framework itself or the entire functionality of creation, validation, all these things as part of our backend application or our as part of business logic application. We are maintaining it as a separate application, as a separate server, and from there we are making the interaction. Okay, so that is what so that's why this is more popular, because we are maintaining as a somewhat a third party component. Tomorrow one more microservice has to connect to WAF2, security point of view. Then you can correct. So then can we connect? So connecting the security available inside our application is good solution, or connecting security implementation or security integration, which is derived as a separate component, which is a good solution. Tight couple, loose couple, something like that. We will have some principles, right? So which is a good solution? This one is a good, or this one is a good solution? Obviously, this one is a good solution, right? So you are maintaining security with respect to token creation, validation, client ID, secrets, all these things as part of a separate component. So that these are all business logic applications. So that's why this is more popular, but this is being used. Okay, so sometimes what will happen? People will use JWT plus WAF2 in the same project. So JWT, some places they will use JWT. For example, front end versus back end integration. But in the back end, sometimes you will have, lot of other microservices, which are couple of microservices belongs to your project, couple of microservices you are accessing from others projects. Okay, so in such case, you have to use sometimes WAF2. They are accepting only WAF2 tokens. But your front end, back end, you are dealing with the JWT integration. But when you are accessing other project microservices, for example, Flipkart is accessing the payment gateway. Flipkart front end, Flipkart back end accessing the payment gateway. Now Flipkart front end and back end is integrated with JWT. But payment gateway is created with WAF2 security. Now, whenever you want to send a request from Flipkart backend to payment gateway will give you a secret key, a user ID to you. We already discussed, right? So then it will say like, you have to come up with this user ID. In the backend, what is the security they are using? WAF2. So here you should know. You don't need to know. So you just simply send a REST service request like that. They will give you URL. So this is a third party. This is maintaining as a separate application, right? So I told you this is maintaining as a separate application, right? So that's why if you see here, client ID is nothing but user ID. In WAF2 terminology, we will use client ID instead of user ID. So that's why sometimes I am automatically getting client ID. Okay, with respect to front end login user point of view, login user ID we can call. But when you take it in a generic point of view, we have to call it as a client ID because we already know that, right? For example, I have a backend application, Spring Boot application. So do you think always only front end is going to be connected to our backend application in reality? No, right? So it may be front end, it might be Python application, it might be .NET application, it might be another Spring Boot application, it might be Golang application. Any application can connect to your Spring Boot application because you implemented everything as a REST services. Your REST services can be accessible by any other programming language applications. Now these are all called as what? Clients. So that's why a generic terminology people will use client ID. Okay, instead of user ID. User IDs means generally login level, whatever you will do, front end level, only front end level, the HTML forms what we will do, we will call it as a user ID. But when you are representing the overall application, we have to call it as a client application. When you are representing overall, okay, application functionality. So that is what they are saying. Client ID is nothing but user ID. They will give one password. OAuth 2 will give a password also to the client application when you make a communication between one application. So this URL is, see in earlier case, JWT is as part of your project only. I mean, sorry, JWT is as part of in your single project itself you integrated JWT. Source code of JWT is available in Spring Boot only. But this is available inside your project or outside of your project. One outside of the project, like nothing but one more project, one more application. Then how can you make one application? I mean, how we are making communication between one application to another application via web services. To access web services, I mean, if you are using the REST services out of web services, what are the details you want? What is the one most important thing you want always? 100% URL. Without URL, can you send a request? Right? 100% URL you want. So that is what the URL they are saying. So that means you are sending request to OAuth 2 server with this user ID with this password. Now whenever, okay, a request sent with all these details from the client point of view, now client given all these details. Okay, so here I given client ID as Dilip, secret also Dilip 123, and I am giving someone so and so OAuth 2 server like that. Then the via REST template, what you will do is you will enter all these details. As a request body, you will enter username, comma, password, and you will give the URL like this. And then the request will go to the OAuth 2 server from your backend application. So that is how OAuth 2 server is little bit advanced when comparing with the JWT. But when it comes to token creation, token generation, token validation, logic wise, 99%, 70 to 80%, both are top. Concept is same. Only thing is it is having some extra advanced features and it is separating from the business logic applications. Okay, so that's why in most of the enterprise level applications, people will use OAuth 2s, and in couple of applications are like 40 to 50%, people will use the JWT also. Sometimes people will use both the options. Okay, so like that, OAuth 2 will be available. So that's all. And if you are apart from that, if you see the tokens, okay, here, leave it. Scopes approval. See here, authorization, something you are setting client ID, user ID. So even JWT point of view also, we are using some JWT as set subject, set expiry time, set created time, something like that, right? So that is what they are saying, expiration date. This is also we know, right? In JWT also we are setting expiry time or not. So that is all they are doing that. Token endpoint. So this is what I told you. Token. So they are installing a lot of what it is certificates, security certificates. Even they are using AWS also. Don't worry by saying all these things, okay? OAuth 2 client. Now, this is what I told you. So OAuth 2 server URL, their user ID, their password, and everything. So little bit advanced than the JWT, but concept is almost same. Access token request via header, authorization headers, you are going to get the tokens. Protected resources. This we are not done. We are going to do that. What is the meaning of protected resources? Which API should be comes under the security, which API should not comes under the security like that. That's all comes under the protected. Protected means it should be under security. So like that. So that configuration we will do that. Even JWT authentication mechanism we are talking. It's a big application. Leave it. So just focus on the JWT. Don't worry. Okay. So now is it good with the creation of token and validation? Right. So now can we move to the actual Spring Boot implementation? So whatever we discuss with respect to JWT, okay, is we can implement as a separate standalone application also. In your main method, if you are added these two jar files to your build path or class path, and if you copy pasted this entire logic into main method, then if you are executing via main method also, you can see the token creation, you can see the token validation. It's a simply third party framework component. Fine. Okay, now let's come back to the security as part of what we are going to do now. We will make a analysis now, and then we will start writing the coding. Okay, if you see here, we already discussed, I'm just reminding one more time, and we will start directly coding. So first thing is, what user will send? Registration as a fresh application. As of now, no customers, 0 customers. Today only we are launching our application like that thing. Okay. So first time, user has to register his account. So when user sending a request for the register button or register request from the client, a request came to the backend application with all registration details. Username, Dilip, password, so and so, email ID, mail, gender, all these details and all. Now, in this case, the /register REST service, assume it is implemented in the backend everything. Now, is it going to come under the security or non-security? Right? Protected or non-protected? Non-protected, because registration is all about a public operation, because first time he is interacting with our application. So then once his registration is completed successfully, his email ID is good, his mobile number is good, his password is good, everything is good, then we will insert data into database. Then once it is inserted successfully, then we will say like user registration is successful. Start doing the login now. Now please log in now. Now user clicked on the login button. User entered his username, password and clicked on the login button. Okay. Now the request is going to the backend application again. Now again this /login what went to the backend. You return a request body with username, comma, password, something like that. Now, is this also a protected API, non-protected API? Non-protected, because he is doing the login. He is verifying his details. Now, what server application has to do? Now, in this case, once the request reached to the okay, I'm directly writing login point of view. So, request reached, and in the backend application, what we are going to do is more important. Okay, leave about the okay. So in this case, what we are going to do here it is, now whenever a request coming for this /login, what we have to do is for this endpoint. Okay, for this endpoint in our Spring Boot application, what we have to do is the request should be handled by the security layer. Only /login is should be handled by the security layer. So that means now whenever I send username Dilip, password is Dilip123, something like that. Okay, here assume this is the database and Dilip123, something like that you have. This is the database table, whatever it is. Now this is what the data coming from the client to backend application. Now in this case, this login, whenever a login request went to received by the backend application, now only for this /login, we have to hand over this request to security layer. Now what security layer will do internally is on high level, it is going to connect to the database table. Okay, we have to do all this configuration internally now. So what we are going to do in programmatically now I am explaining you. So once the login request received by the backend application from the client, so what we have to do, that only special login request we have to configure with the security layer. As of now, we are added security. Now in earlier case, what is the front layer you will have? Generally as of now, without security. Controller, right? So from controller, it will reach to the service and service to something like that. But in this case, what I'm trying to say here it is, it's all about security layer. Okay, once we are adding the security, what is going to happen here it is, once you are sending username password, so once the request received by the backend application, we have to make sure somehow the request is integrated with the security only for this REST service. Now, what security will do is, security internally will directly connects to the, directly or means somehow it is going to connect it to the database. It is a database, and assume this is the table name you written like user underscore info, something like that, one of the table, where you are maintaining your username, password, email ID, all these details. From the database, this is the table. Now, internally, security layer will verify with this combination user ID is available or not. Okay, so is it available? Yes. So it is verifying with the table like, so do we have user ID called as Dilip? Do we have password as Dilip123 for the user Dilip or not? Like that, internally it is verifying with the table. Who has to do all these steps? Control, I mean, like our regular flow controller, or in this case, we have to involve the security layer. In this case, we have to involve the security layer. Okay, controller only, but we will involve in only in this REST service point of view, we are involving the security layer. Okay, now security layer, okay, is going to do validation of user ID and password with the database. Now, once the combination, now database will give information and security will realize, or security finalize like, okay, user existed. Somehow security is, okay, made a call to the DB, and then finally security layer is decided as user existed. For example, combination is not available. Then what security layer will do? Security layer will give a response back as, okay, unauthorized person or unauthenticated person, you are okay, something like that, invalid credentials. Okay, in a normal customer point of view, normal regular user point of view, invalid credentials. In the backend, but you will receive status codes as 401 unauthorized, something like that. You have a specific response status codes. You will receive that in the backend. Okay, but in the front end, you will receive error messages, invalid credentials, please try one more time. Okay. Now, for example, user is existed. Now, what security layer will do is, now with respect to security layer, we have to invoke the JWT creation, token creation. What you have to do? Token creation. Now, whatever the logic we written, whatever the JWT class we written, JWT manager now. So we are going to make sure security layer is okay, calling that class and calling a method called as create token. So for creating the token, what is the input value you have to pass always? User ID. But where you have user ID? Do we have user ID or not? Obviously, right? This is what? User ID. Once user is existed, then what it will do is, it will start creating the user token creation for that user ID. So you have user ID or not? Yes, Dilip. These are all user IDs only, right? Dilip. So then internally it will take this user ID Dilip and it will pass to the token creation. Now a token will be created. With this user ID. Now what security layer will do is, okay, it will execute the remaining logic, okay, or it will attach the token plus your response body. Token plus your response body. So you may write down one more database calls. You will create some DTO objects and you can pass all this information at a time to the client. So response body, your first name, your last name, welcome to home, something like that, all the addresses, your profile information, all the things you can attach. You will make a DTO object, a response body, and you are sending this token as what? You are attaching to the request body or header. The token how you are sending, directly via request body or header? Headers. Token should be exchanged always via what, guys? We already discussed. When server creating the token, it will be always processing to the forwarding to the client as part of the request body or header. Header, right? So request body will contains always most of the times business related logic, user information related logic. Token is user information. Token is the user information, a real business information like dilip@gmail.com, something like mobile number, balance, like that. No, right? It's a security authentication in between client versus backend application, front end application versus backend application. With this token value, what customer will do? Is there any relationship with real customer with this token? No, right? So that's why these are all called as metadata Headers tokens will be called as metadata in between client application to server application. They are using the token for the trusting point of view, for authentication point of view, but there is no relation with the customer information or business information. So this will be forwarded as, I mean, you have to send the token by attaching to the header, Okay. So now finally this response, okay, when it is invalid credentials, we written this earlier. Now in case, if it is valid credentials, a token will be going or not. I mean, the response request body, like all his personal information, first name, last name, gender, email ID, along with that in the backend, you are sending one more. I mean, you are sending token also as part of the header. Now, finally, for the login request point of view, I am deleting this. So, in invalid credentials, nothing to discuss much. As a flow point of view, I am discussing. Okay. Now, request received. Now, request received. And this is what the response you are getting. Okay, yes, header is thanks. Okay, now you are getting response. As part of response, what you are getting? So the response body as well as the token is attached as part of the header. Okay, this is what happens with respect to request and response of the login button. Now fine. Now next request. Okay, now you logged into the Flipkart account. Now, are you going to do one more time any login operations? Nothing, right? Now you are able to see manage addresses, all this information. Now, whenever we are clicking on the manage addresses, what is the URL generated in our Flipkart? You forgot? /account/addresses. When you are clicking on the manage addresses, what is the URL? It is displaying /account/addresses. So that is a service or not? Okay, now as a front end point of view, now I am clicking on the button called as manage addresses. What is that? Manage addresses. Then what is the URL? /account. I mean flipkart.com /account/addresses. Okay, this is the information. This is the URL is going back to the, I mean, this is the URL you are triggering or you are hitting from the front end to back end. Now again, a request will go. As part of the request, what you have to send? As part of the request, what information you have to send? What is the first one, second one, third one? Method, body, I mean method and URL, all these things. Okay, for this is the URL, simply on high level, headers. Okay, so in this case, method comes under which method? Maybe assume they defined as, yeah, HTTP method only, get method. I assume this REST service we defined in the backend as a account/addresses, okay, defined as get method, and it requires a request body with username and in case if any other details also. Now in the body level, what you have to send, guys? The login user ID or not? So you have to send always login user ID or not? If so, that means who logged in here? Delete. This name has to be forwarded to the backend or not? This name has to be forwarded always to the backend or not? It's a unique ID, right? So you have to send always as a delete. I mean username as a delete. So that along with that you are sending token also. Which token you are sending? What you received in the here. Whatever the token you received here, the same token you are attaching again as part of the request header. Okay, so you are sending this token and in the user ID level, you are sending your unique user ID. Okay, if it is Flipkart, they are taking mobile number or email ID, right? So if you take an, so assume if it is mobile number 88882611 something like that. Okay, so Metla Nagaraj, do one thing, just decrease the size of secret key, then it will resolve. Okay, don't make too much length of secret key, then only you are going to get that sign in problems. So make sure your key is little bit less when you are using the 256 algorithms, all these things. So it's all token sizes should be based on the algorithms. If you are using 256, use like around 40, 50 characters of the secret key. Don't use 200, 300 characters. Then you are getting that problem. Okay. So fine. Okay, leave it. Now let's concentrate here. So you are sending the token. Now the request received to the backend application. Now what backend application is doing? The request directly reaching to the controller. We have to implement like that. No, right? Because slash account slash addresses is all about a protected API. Somehow we have to make sure this is comes under the protected API. So that configuration also we have to do. Which one is a protected, which one is a non-protected. Okay, slash register slash login belongs to non-protected. Slash account addresses, okay, reset passwords, change email IDs, delete account, update your user ID, update your first name, update your last name. These are all comes under what? Obviously protected, right? Otherwise, your user ID, your mobile number will be changed by your friend if it is not protected, right? So that's why these are all protected one. Okay, now this request reaches to the backend application. Now somehow the request always goes to the security layer. Okay, the request directly always goes to the security layer. It will verify this is a protected or non-protected, this URL. So is it a protected or non-protected? So yes, we are going to make it as a protected. Okay, we are going to make it as a protected. Then what security layer will do is, once it is identified as a protected URL, then it will start looking for the token available or not. Then it will ask, once it identified this URL is configured as a protected, then it will immediately look for the token as part of the head, okay, request body. In the request level, the token available or not. Now security layer will read this token. Security layer will read this token, and what it will do now? Validation or not? So now security layer will start. Okay, if it is protected, so the URI is protected, then what it will do immediately? Read the, check, looking for the token. Looking for the token. Now token is available. Then when token is available, what it will do? Validation. Okay. In case token is not available, token is missing somehow. Front end is not sending token to the back end. Then what security will do? That means token is not available. Token not available. Okay, in this case, what you will do? Token not available. Simply, you will send as 401 unauthorized. Unauthorized to the front end. Now in the status code, what they received front end? Success status code or bad status code? 401. It is somewhat negative status code. So based on that, what they will do now? What you observed in the Flipkart. Without login, when you are accessing the slash account slash addresses, once you are sending the request with that URL, what you are seeing as a response? Login page. So that means now front end people will read that status code 401 unauthorized. Now front end people will write down a logic based on that status code. Okay, somewhat token is missing or maybe unauthorized or maybe token is expired, whatever the reason it is. Now front end team, based on those status codes, they will display the login page. They will display the login page. This is all front end heading. Front end developers knows that, how to do all these things. Okay, so token is not available. That's a straightforward scenario. For example, token is available. So then what you have to validate? You are validating the token. The same logic we are already implemented, right? This is all comes under the picture now, whatever we discussed. Now, first thing is what you want. Where it is. Yeah, here. So you want user ID, login user ID and token. Now both available in this request or not? What is the login user ID? Delete. What is the token? Okay, assume you have a token like this. Some unreadable format I will write down. I'm not writing entire thing. So this is what the token attached by the front end. Now this token came to the back end. Now what backend application will do? It will take this delete. It will read username from this token. Okay, from this token also. Now it's all about JWT token validation. Internally get username from token and validate token username with login user ID or requested user ID, whatever it is. Okay, leave about the spelling mistakes. Okay, so token not available. I will write down in the below. This is a one straightforward. Now, so in this case, what is the user ID? Login user ID? Dilip, and assume from the token also you got Dilip only. Dilip equal to Dilip. So true or false? So true. So that means with respect to user ID, true. This is we already implemented. Only thing is now we are going to integrate this piece of logic with security. That's all we are going to do. This entire thing will be executed. Now, is this enough? Then what is the next step? Internally, the logic will be executed. Second step also. Token expiry. So at what time the request came from the front end? Okay, time validity. The logic comes with respect to time validity also. Now once time is validated, time also within the range and everything is true, then finally your token is true. I mean, it's a valid token. That means the result came as success. Security flag, security status becoming as success for your request. Now the request will be forwarded to the actual REST service method, what you will write down. Okay, service layer, call the REST services, load the repository. Now the entire logic will be executed. Now from controller, inside controller level, whatever the logics you are writing. Okay, let me open one REST service. Yeah, another response. See here. For example, yeah, assume this is somewhat like addresses point of view / account. Now, once your security is good, then here onwards your logic will be executed as usual. Like it will go to the, I mean, now for example, security is failed. This line is going to execute it. Okay, assume it is a protected API. Token is expired or somewhat reason security is failed. Then this line is going to be executed. No. So from here itself, okay, it will go back. The request will be going back to the front end as unauthorized or something like that. Now, if security is good, then it will start executing as usual. Okay, you got the point what we are going to do with this Spring security now. Internally, how JWT is going to help. Now, for example, okay, so here I got, okay, fine. Now you got the response. All the addresses find by address ID, one-to-many relationship you implemented. Okay, find by Dilip. All Dilip related addresses, home address, office address, okay, native address, permanent address, like that, all got all my addresses, and one-to-many. You implemented list of all these things, how to write down the nested Java objects response body. Finally, a JSON will be prepared, JSON given back to the front end. Okay, fine. Now, client sent a request, clicked on the button called as help button. Okay, something like small, okay, a help button. So in this case, okay, one more request came from one more client, think as a one more client. So request came for the flipkart.com/help. Is it a protected or non-protected API? Non-protected API. So the request first will go to the security configuration. Every request will go, but security will decide whether it is a protected, non-protected. If it is comes under the protected configuration, then all these process will coming into the picture. If it is non-protected, then automatically controller layer logic will be executed. But when it comes to login, we have to add some extra logic only for the login purpose. What it is? You have to make sure creating the token on successful validation of username and password with the DB. The token creation, this extra logic you have to write down for the /login. Okay, you have to write down all these things. This is what we are going to implement as part of our security now. So now overall process, what is the first step we have to do now from this below discussion? What you have to do now first? Okay, enable security is the first step. We will add the dependency now. Fine. After enabling the security dependency, what you have to do? So configure, the first most thing is, okay, or what you have to do is configure which APIs are protected, which are not protected. So we have to tell to the security layer or not. This API is a public, this is a private. When this request came for this API, validate the security. When request came for this, don't ask the token, allow him to execute directly the request like that. We have to give configuration or not, which is a private API, public API. So that information also we have to configure. So along with that, login integration with security. Why we are integrating only login endpoint with the security layer? I mean, we are writing we have to perform some extra logic or not. What is that? Token creation. So that's why some login method level, some extra functionality we are going to do that. Now the remaining, so slash account slash addresses point of view, in this REST service, the logic of validating the token, expiry token or not, all these details, this logic you are going to write down inside the implementation of this REST, in this REST service, or we are going to centralize this logic in security layer. We have to centralize because tomorrow 1000 URLs will be there. For 1000 URLs, you are going to write down inside the REST service level, like here. So, once request is received here, so that I can start validating the token like this. Validate token here. Similarly, validate token like that. How many REST services, how many times you will do that? So, we have to make sure this centralized. When you are accessing any premises, security is available at main entrance or security is available wherever you will go. If you are going to the office interview, main security will be available only at the main entrance point of view, right? So after that, you can start, assume you got a job. When you are entering into the premises, they will verify your ID card. Once you are entering into your offices by showing this ID card, you can access cafeteria, you can access your office rooms, you can access your conference rooms, you can access wherever you want because you are a authorized person of that organization. You shown the token. Now forget you forgot the ID card. You are going to the office, you forgot one fine day, you forgot the ID card. What they will do? They will allow you without ID card? No, right? So alternatives are different. They will give some one day pass or duplicate, whatever it is. But by default, they are allowing. No, right? They will say like, we will not allow. Alternatives, that is a different story. So same case here also. Now this entire logic, we are going to make centralized at one place. So that, and now in this overall case, what is going to happen? If it is a request reaches, a request came. So if it is protected URI or non-protected URI. So if it is protected URI, let me write down like this. I'm going very slowly for your batch. I don't know why. Slowly means explaining very clearly, very small minor things also. Protected, non-protected. So if it is protected, then security checks coming into the picture. Token validation, all these things. Token validation, everything. Token validation, everything should happen. If it is non-protected, you are going, once token validation is completed, validation is true, that means good. And token validation came as false, that means negative. Now in this case, the response, in this case, request will be forwarded to the controller method. Yes, exactly, good. Controller method execution. For the REST service, whatever the method we return, service layer, repository layer, all these things. Now, for example, security came as false. Token is expired, invalid token. Then security layer is going to forward your request and it is going to allow execute the controller method. Then what is the use of security? Then what security will do? Security will give a 401 bad response or unauthorized response. 401 unauthorized response directly giving to the client. So here, now the response is directly going to the client like this. Who is sending this? Security. But in this case, security layer forwarding request to the controller method. Now controller method will execute, all the DB operations will happen, service layer, business logic, normal flow, and finally a JSON will be created. All the addresses will be converted as JSON, Java objects converted as JSON, and finally you are going to see in the client level like expected response. expected response. Okay. So in case if it is non-protected, okay, this is all a request, incoming request, always to backend application point of view. Now, for example, it decided in the security config, we will make some configuration, security config. Okay, this is the good approach. Now request came to the security configuration. It will identify protected, go to the token validation. If it is identified as non-protected, okay, then directly it reaches to the controller method. Controller method execution. Okay, you got the overall scenario, how security framework we are going to implement in any of the application. So this is what you have to do that. This token validation always is a centralized logic. You are going to write down only one in one place, but that will be affected to every protected API. If it is non-protected API, token validation is and all, we have to skip. We have to directly give access to the controller method execution. Okay. So what I will do, I'm just stopping here itself. So please practice validation of the tokens, creating the tokens, do all the experiments. Okay, here, false I have to see, simply I have to. So do you apply your skills, how much exceptional handling you learnt as part of your core Java level. What is this? Then what you will do? Headers dot add. Okay, headers dot add. You will token whatever the header name you have to give always token and value you will attach here. Headers dot add. That's all. Okay, so headers dot add method will be there. What is the header name? Assume you decided as token. And what is the value? Comma. The value, the token. The token value, you will send it from one application to another application if you want to send a token. That's all. Headers, you know, right? HTTP headers. So then you will add these headers to the REST template object. That's all. An HTTP entity like body plus headers. Body plus headers. I deleted that, right? Yeah, body plus headers. Yeah, this is what. So body plus headers. That is what about the HTTP entity. This is all representing the entire thing. So it's all about body. This is all about header. Okay. So give me some time. So you are extending user servlets extend HTTP servlet. So user extending HTTP, HTTP extending generic. Generic implemented servlet interface. Now in your user servlet level, you are writing the service method. Is it or you are calling from the service method, you are calling init method. From the service, can we call or get servlet config info method? So can we call from the service method? In the user servlet level, get servlet config method, can I call or not? I can call, but you define that in your child class? No, right? It is executing from the HTTP servlet level. So that means, is it a reusability or not? So that is what inheritance, right? We no need to write in the code, we are handling the parent properties. You are not writing, but you need that method execution. So that way simply you are calling. Like that you have to explain. That is what they will explain. That is what they will expect. Okay, so that is the range you have to reach. Okay. So yeah, so the Dilip IT Academy, something like that. I just created a channel. Just try to get it. If in case I'll try to make sure other things also going further, which are going to helpful only for the students to get a job. Okay, so I'll try to all the things by using my knowledge. Okay, so just try with this, you will find out and go through it. If you have any issues, let me know. Okay, so let's continue